Today I'm going to be doing some food levitation photography. There's a process to it and some planning and some different things, but it's really easy and it's really fun. So go ahead and stick around through the whole video and you'll see how I approach it. I'm going to do today, and I've had this idea in my head for a little while. I've wanted to do a levitating cup of noodles, and I don't know why, I just thought it would be kind of a fun idea, so I figured I'd let you guys join me as I go through how I set it up and different things to consider and materials and things like that. I've used this, I've created this frame, and what I use it for is well, you can see here there's wire going across to different levels, and I can just use these eye screws and razor lower where what levels I want or how many I want in this frame that I've built. And I've seen people do levitating food photography, but they use light stands and string, and it's just, I find that that's just too flimsy for me, and I want a little more control. I want a little more stability, and this offers me that. And plus I can put heavier materials on here like waffles and pancakes, in which I'll show you some pictures I've done for some restaurants here before, using this device for waffles and pancakes and ham sandwiches and stuff like that. So anyway, what I did is this cup of noodles, it took me actually 2 cups of noodles to do this. The first cup I took and just hollowed it out from the bottom here. I cut the bottom out with a razor, and then I took all the contents out. And then it doesn't come out, I don't know if you've ever tried to do that, but it doesn't come out as one piece like this here. It comes out as a bunch of crumbs. So what I had to do is, once I got that out, I hot glued the bottom back on. Then I took another cup of noodles and I cut it lengthwise and unwrapped it from around the noodle, whatever you call it, the clump of noodles in there. And so it took me 2 different cups of noodles to do this. I hot glued the shrimp and the carrots and the things on here, the way that I liked them, and because they just fall off if you don't. And then in order to keep this lid open, what I did is, I don't know if you can see under here, I'll put a picture. Took a piece of wire, same wire as this is here, and all this is like bead wire or a florist wire you can pick up from like Michael's or a hobby supply store. And I hot glued this cup on here. The noodle bunch is just sitting on here, and in order to bring these 2 wires together, I created this little like a little cinch to bring them closer so that I could get that to support itself. And I hot glued the fork on here. But if you look, what I can do is I can turn from the side. I can turn and get the right angle on these, on the fork, on the, cup, different items. I can adjust the position of them once I have my overall composition set up. And I do 3, because 3 is just a better looking composition. So so I did the fork, and I did the noodles, and I did the cup, and it gives me a nice set of 3 items in the frame. And I keep them centered right in here so that we're not seeing any of this. And I'm going to use a 100mm macro. And like I say, this is just something that I built. You can see this whole thing, and up here I've got holes that I can put wooden dowels in, or clear plexiglass dowels, just to support even heavier stuff. And I can put them in at different heights and angles to hold the product in different ways. And this is just something that I come up with myself. There may be one already made, I don't know, but I made this for me. We'll go ahead and go on to how I'm gonna light this and stuff. I created just a black sweep behind here. I just used I'm on my kitchen table, dining room table. I just used a background stand and a roll of seamless black. I just created a nice sweep. I'm probably going to shoot this at f4. I've got grids on my main light, and a snoot with a grid on my fill. I don't want any light hitting the background, and I'll meter these individually. One is for the actual, I'll show you in the modeling light. One is for the actual, one's the main, and it's going to actually light this side, and then the snoot with the grid is going to come in and light the back side of the noodles. And you know, some things to consider when doing this is angles. When you're doing this food photography on this, you know, levitating, you want to be aware of your angles. What I mean is, you know, sometimes you might have the fork positioned where it's too high and then the wire's cutting across it in the front, or, you know, some things may overlap into the wires, and it's going to create a lot more work for you when you go to edit this in post. And, you know, here we've got a little piece of hot glue string that I can see right here. Let me pull that off as the whole noodle pack falls down. That would be bad. So anyway, and different angles, and sometimes you have materials that are sort of translucent, and when you light them you can see what's behind, and you want to check for that too when you're doing your photography. Stagger everything, groups of threes, don't overlap too much where there's wire or, you know, another part of the product maybe covering. Just have a nice flow, a nice spread out flow, and try to look at this and picture none of this here but just these noodles. And you know, and that's how I go kind of about setting this up. So, and the first thing I want to do is start with a black frame, and what I mean by that is I'm going to go over here and I'm going to set my camera at the maximum shutter speed I want to use for the lights that I have. I can actually do high-speed sync with these lights, but I'm not going to do that. I just want to keep it at 1/200th of a second. And what I'm using as my main Adorama's Flashpoint Evolve 200, and I've got it with a Bowens mount grid on here, and my grid is 20 degree, and that's going to really narrow the beam of light down so it prevents light from spilling in the background and places I don't want it. It's going to really control the light. And if I set this on and I show you here, let me turn it on. Okay, and I put my modeling light on. You can see just where this light is going to hit. It's not going on the background, it's not going anywhere else. Okay, so we'll turn the modeling light off, and then over here on my fill I've got the Explorer 600, and it's a TTO version, but I never use TTO. I just bought it to have it, but I always use it in manual. And I've got it, actually what I've got it on is a C stand, and I've got it fitted with this extension head, and the reason I do this is because it keeps a lot of weight off of this boom arm, because that unit, when you put that on with a modifier, it gets extremely heavy. So what I do is I just keep the battery pack in there, the power supply, and then I'll put my modifier on. So I use that. I've got my Canon 5D, and I've got my light meter. I'm going to be metering this. So like I say, back to first frame, I want it to be dark, and the way I do that is I go to the maximum shutter speed I want to use, and I set that, and then I go to, I'd like to shoot this at f4. It's pretty dark in here. I don't want any ambient light creeping into the frame. We want to start with a black frame. So I'm going to turn off my transmitter. I'm going to stand back and I'm going to compose. I'm going to take a shot, and we'll take a look at that. This is image 8294. I'll put that up on the screen. We've got a black frame. The histogram shows nothing. Okay, so that's good. I want to start with a black frame. Then my next stop from there, and my other settings, just, I mean, you guys should know this already probably, but you know, I'm at one shot because I'm going to do focus and recompose on here. I don't want AI server or anything like that. And my one shot, my AF point is set to the center. That's the sharpest point. Then you know, I've got it set to flash, center weighted average, ISO 100. I'm shooting raw, so anyway, that's all pretty basic stuff. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I've got my main light on, and I'm going to turn this on, make sure that's the only light firing. Yeah, okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this on the table. I usually have a strap on it, but I haven't put it back on, and last week I went to do a shoot and I took the strap off because it was getting in the way for some forget what I was doing. Oh, some bird shots, last one, woodpecker shots. Anyway, so let me turn my light meter on. And remember, we're at f4. That's what's, and 1/200th of a second. That's what's going to give us our dark frame. So we'll go ahead and push this meter right here, F11. That's pretty bright. We don't want F11. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go down and we're going to turn the power down. Actually, I'm going to turn this all the way down to 1/28th of a second. So let's give that another whirl. And we're at F4 right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a quick exposure at F4. Let me back up. And I'm using a 100mm macro because I like the way that it just everything fits in the frame on this, and I can get close. I'm in a small space. So I'm focusing with, I've got back button focus, recompose. I'm going to take my shot. Okay. And this is image 8295. I'll put that up on the screen. And what you can see by looking at this image, we're just looking at the main light right now. Okay. I don't want to see blowouts, blinkies. I don't want to see, and there's a lot of white in the frame because the cup is white, it reflects a lot. The fork is white, it reflects a lot. Okay, I can't see the string going through here. That's good. So we got a good starting exposure on that side, F4. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'm going to turn on my fill over here, and this is the Explorer 600 Flashpoint. I really like it. I love Adorama, man. They're great. We'll turn that on. Okay. And we're gonna, let me turn this modeling light on real quick just to see where this is falling. And I want the light, let me turn the modeling light on a little brighter. It's pretty dark. Okay, there we go. Okay, and remember in the last image, the back of the noodles was really dark, which makes sense because we're really side lighting this. Here's a little bit of hot glue. Okay, take that off of there. So we want to counteract that by lighting the back of the noodles with some fill. You could do this with a reflector or something like that if you want to. You know, it's entirely up to you. Now, let's see if I can raise this a little bit too, because I would like to get a little bit of that lid lit with the same shot, so I don't have to use another modifier or even another light, because I've got this snoot on. Okay, that should be good right there. Let me turn the modeling light off. Okay, modeling light off. Okay, what I'm going to do now I'm going to come over here. And remember, our main shot was F4. So I'd like to get, you know, I don't want it just as bright on this side, and it's just a matter of taste. Remember, we're trying to create a three-dimensional looking image out of a one-dimensional photograph. So what I'll do is I'll go over, turn this on, and we'll hit the back side of this. See what we're looking like. Now we're at f4.5. I think really I could go over here on my power and we can turn, and it's nice because from one transmitter I can control both lights. So let me go up here too, and that's on A. I'm gonna bring that down to, I can't go down any lower than that, 1/28. I can back it up. Let me take another quick little exposure, or actually let me get another meter reading. Come on. There we go. Okay, we're at 1.8. Let's do one more. 1.8. I think I like to go just a little bit right there to 1/64th, and let's try that. Okay, now we're at 2.5. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an exposure and just see what this does right here. what that light looks like. Okay, remember I'm trying to get a little bit of the lid. I'm trying to get the noodle. Okay. Focus. Recompose. See what the back of that looks like. Oh, this is so cool, man. Okay, image 8296. I'll put that up on screen. Man, I tell you, that really did a good job at lighting the back. The noodles have a lot of texture, which is what I really want to show. The lid is bright. It's not reflecting off a bunch of, it's not over lit to where some of it's not legible. It looks really good. And I'll put that up on screen. Okay, and really, and it does get some light inside of the cup itself. So what I'll do is I'll turn my main light back on over here, and okay, everything's on. I just fired my transmitters. All I did. So everything's set up. We've metered this light for f4. We've metered this light for, was it 2.5, to get a nice well exposed image over here, and we should get a nice fill light over here. Everything's on. Everything's in the position it needs to be. I've got my 2 lights set up. All I'm going to do now is back up, make sure I got everything nice and sharp, and man, this is awesome. Look at the texture on those noodles. Side lighting really gives a lot of texture. Hey, thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. What we're doing right here in the sped up clips is we're just putting some objects into the water to create some splash. And I'll go ahead and I'll post that image up right now so you can see it. And then also in the beginning of the video, I posted the finished image from today's shoot, along with some other food levitation type photography I've done. Thanks for liking and watching. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't, and I appreciate your time.